one from which we could gain another perspective on the inherent worth and dignity of all persons, and was utterly delighted when he agreed to be our guest speaker this morning. Many of you will recognize Duane. He was polled as the #1 high school favorite principal for his role of Van Clemens in the TV series Veronica Mars, and reprised that role in a recent release of the movie by the same name. Duane's non-stop 30-year career has included acting, directing, and producing in stage, film, and television. In June, he will return for the 6th summer to teach contemporary performance at the Barrage Conservatory in Normandy, France. He is currently artistic director and acting coach at the Actors Workhouse in downtown Phoenix, where he is always attempting to empower the actor. Considering the variety of challenges he hands us at each session, I can vouch for that. Duane?
Good morning. Hi. Thank you so much for the opportunity to come in and chat with you this morning. Ann and I are good pals, and I'm just really pleased. Thank you so much for this. It's great. I anticipated being a little bit nervous, but it's okay. I'm not. We have tactics. We know what to do when we get nervous up here. So, and don't worry, it's not that underwear thing. It's okay.
Yeah, it wouldn't be very pretty.
So I really do appreciate the opportunity to come in and get a chance to talk to you a little bit about, what has been very rewarding for me in my life. I know I haven't spent a lot of time around accountants. I haven't spent a lot of time around doctors or lawyers or, salespeople or anything like that. I've spent most of my life in the company of actors. I've been fortunate enough from an early age to always know that I wanted to be in the acting world, and I've been blessed and fortunate enough to be able to stay there for most of my life. And I'm sure that lawyers are great people, and pharmacists are great people, and I'm sure that, social workers do great work, but I must say that to me, one of the most brave things that we can do is to be an actor. Because as an actor, what we really do is understand each other on a deep human level and represent and fight for people that are not ourselves. My mother had a great expression when I was a kid, and you guys probably have heard this before, that you wouldn't judge someone until you had a chance to walk a mile in their shoes. And that's a great phrase that means so much to a lot of us, but as an actor, that's what we do as a way of life. We walk a mile in someone else's shoes. It is a wonderful opportunity and a great responsibility for actors to have done that. And the road that actors follow is such a difficult one. I think maybe the odds of being an astronaut would be about the same as being a professional actor, or maybe the odds of being a professional sports person, an athlete of some kind. The odds are very much stacked against actors in so many ways, but they're driven by a need to fight for the people that are not able to fight for themselves. Think about great stories, great plays like The Diary of Anne Frank, for instance. A great opportunity to fight for someone who does not have the opportunity to fight for themselves. And that's what actors do. That's what drives them, I think. And I think it's just a beautiful and very noble profession. They face so many challenges. The stereotypes of the casting couch, for instance, or nepotism, favoritism, prejudice. There's not really any other profession where an employer can say to someone, you know something, I'm not going to hire you because I don't think that your skin color is the right one. I won't hire you because your eyes are the wrong color for this role. I won't hire you because you're not tall enough. I won't hire you because you're not pretty enough or not acceptable enough in whatever way that the producer might think. Imagine a profession where that is the norm. What a difficult profession that would be to find your way in. I talk often about about the difficulties that actors face, and that's just some of them, as far as personal preferences, prejudices in the casting world, and who's going to get the job. It is a very difficult thing to do, and ultimately, one of the things that makes it the most difficult of all is the subjectivity of what we do as actors. As far as such and such is a good actor and such is a poor actor, and there's no real way to suggest who's right. It is simply a matter of personal opinion. And at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, there's one thing that is really true and also very challenging for the actor. One might even call it disempowering. And that is the fact that everybody in the audience knows you're not really Hamlet. The whole audience knows. They hand out a program to everybody saying, Hamlet will be played by Steve Johnson. Steve's got 2 dogs and lives in Glendale. We know ultimately that you are not Hamlet, and yet the person gets up here and bravely fights on behalf of those characters. And it is, as I say, it is a very brave thing to do. Why do actors find this as something that they feel like they must do? I think that perhaps among the most sensitive of us, we read body language, facial expression to understand what is the inner workings of a human being. And it is a lovely, lovely thing that we do on their behalf. We fight hard on behalf of these people who are not able to represent themselves. Those people that are not here in the room, that's what actors do. They fight on behalf of those people, and it's a beautiful profession. The tears of a clown is a phrase that we use an awful lot when we talk about comedians, comic actors, that underneath there is some pain, there is some hurt there that they are dealing with. To read the body language of other people, to see the folded arms or the downcast eyes, and to be able to understand what is going on underneath. It is one of the most empathetic, I think, professions that we can possibly have. And I don't think it's any real coincidence that in the arts, in the world of theater, gays have always been accepted. Gays and lesbians have always been accepted in that world. And I don't think it's a coincidence either that actors are known for being liberal causes, for trying to do things that will help average people. And I think that that's something that that actors do inherently because of their inherent compassion for other people. A great piece of drama is one of 2 things. Drama is always about one of 2 things, either love or injustice. And really isn't injustice just the absence of love. And people that find themselves drawn to telling these stories, drawn to righting the wrongs of society, drawn to exposing corruption, drawn to injustice, telling the story, like in the Laramie Project, to fight, in that case, for the young gay man that was murdered in Wyoming years ago. The people that are drawn to telling these stories, to fighting for those that cannot fight for themselves. And I've been so fortunate to have been with those people for most of my life. And I find that very, very rewarding. And I wouldn't have chosen any other way. Ann and I had spoken a little, by the way, it's so great to be here, Ann. Thank you so much for inviting me to this lovely congregation. I'm having a great time. You guys are lovely. We'd spoken earlier that perhaps I would take some questions or question and answer. I would love to do that. I don't usually make speeches, but I'm real good if anybody has a question. If you want to shoot up your hand, I'd love to get a chance to talk about that. Yes, thank you.
Would you talk a little bit about your childhood experiences and how you got into acting and how that progressed?
Yeah, I would love to. I came up. My childhood experiences were somewhat challenging a little bit. My mom's always been great. My dad wasn't always. We had some addiction and criminal stuff going on. I found that as a child, I never wanted to do anything else. I've always, and I feel like I'm also very, very blessed that I've been able to do what I've wanted to do my whole life. I've just always wanted to just do that, and I've been very, very fortunate to do that. And as a kid, I used to go to school and make plays with my friends, and I'm just still doing that. I've never stopped. Yeah, so that's how I did. I get a chance to go every summer. I'm leaving next month to go to France, and I teach there contemporary performance. And the actors are all young people there. They're typically 15 to about 21 or 22. And it is such a wonderful environment for young people because in that environment, I don't know if you've been around the creative kids, the artist kids, but boy, they are a lovely group of young people. And in that group, everybody is included. It is such an inclusive environment for young people. It's just a tremendous environment and experience, and I look forward to it every year. And I'm going to leave in about 5 weeks to go back to France and teach these kids. And the gay kids are cool, and the fat kids are cool, and the nerds are cool, and everybody is great and cool. There we go, right? Everybody is welcome and inclusive in this environment because the creative kids, the artistic kids, they understand. We all get along. We understand what it's like to be other. It is just a wonderful environment for those of you that are maybe have kids, or some of you that are young enough. Do indeed, if you would, think about trying to ask kids to move into the arts, because it is, by definition, it is a compassionate world in the arts. And we really get a chance to get in touch. It's very empowering for young people. When you're a kid, you don't get a chance to own much. You can't own your homework. You can't own your bedroom. You can't own your school. You don't really get a chance to own much. But you can own your performance. You can own that play that you wrote. You can own that show that you're doing with your friends. It's a real sense of ownership and empowerment for young people that I don't think is paralleled in any other way that I've ever seen. It's definitely a real blessing. And some of the young people, this program that I work at in France has been there for 7 years now. And so the oldest kids are only, 23, 24 years old. I can't wait until they really get out there and start making their mark on the world in their 30s and stuff, because these young people are really, it gives me a lot of hope for the future when I really get a chance to see what these young artists are up to. So thank you for that question. Anybody else have any other questions? Yes, thank you.
Is there any similar programs here for the youth?
There is, I know there's Performing Arts High School here. I actually, I have some brochures in the back. I have a youth program that I have 2 sessions here. One is May 18th and one is June 8th. That's for kids 10 and up that they would be welcome to come to. So I have some brochures back there. There are some other programs. I'm not really from Phoenix, so I don't know a whole lot about what's going on outside of my own little world. I definitely recommend for any youth to definitely get into the arts. Yes, thank you.
Can you speak of 1 or 2 of your favorite roles that you played?
Sure.
And why?
Well, thanks for asking that. Woo, that's fun. Anne got to mention the television show Veronica Mars, which I've been happy to have been in for a while. I'm going to go back to the pilot episode. And I tell you, when I was doing that TV show, I didn't realize at the time how good it was going to be. I just was kind of looking at my lines. I didn't know. I'm very proud to have been in that show. The lasting impact that show has had, and it goes back to the theme of compassion, because the lead character in that show, Veronica Mars, is a flawed individual, but she fights really hard for justice and love. And the character in that was a high school student, and so it's really difficult, I think, for young people to get a role model of someone who's in high school, because what a difficult and tumultuous time of life that is, especially in today's society. So that has been definitely a favorite of mine. And recently, of course, the movie, I don't know if you heard about the Kickstarter campaign, etc., but 92,000 people contributed money to make a movie, and that's kind of crazy, and that's just recently happened. And then we recently closed in all the theaters, so that's been very, very rewarding. There are a lot of other roles too. I want to mention Sweeney Todd. Sweeney Todd is a great musical operetta piece that I've done a few times. I've played Sweeney 3 times. That's one of my favorite roles by Stephen Sondheim. So yeah, thank you very much for asking. I really do appreciate that. Yes, young lady.
Did you ever have any role models when you were younger, did you look up to anyone?
Yeah, I really did. When I was a kid on TV, there were two TV dads that I thought were amazing, Andy Griffith and Dick Van Dyke. Yeah, and Dick Van Dyke is still my hero. He's still my absolute hero. So those two guys in particular, yeah. I don't know, you're a little young, you might not know those fellas, but yeah, check out, yeah, Dick Van Dyke is actually still my hero, so he definitely is. Did you have a question? Yeah.
Yeah, there was an NPR interview with Kevin Spacey this week on NPR, I don't know if you heard it.
I didn't.
But he talked about how he never uses a star dressing room for live theater because it's so naturally collaborative. He doesn't want to be set up where he wants to be immersed with everybody else. And that also that with the audience, there's that connection. And Bernie and I love live theater, and I think, do you notice as an actor that difference of the connection with the audience in live theater?
Yeah, I think without a doubt, a theater is my home. That's where I came from. I started doing television and movies much later. I was a theater person and still am at heart. And yeah, nothing like the immediate reaction that you get from an audience. That feeling that we get as an actor. We talk about this a lot in our classes. But there's that moment when you can hear a pin drop, in the audience. I mean, you can always hear a pin drop on set because everybody's totally quiet. But in the audience, to create that tension and release that's so tangible and interchangeable between the audience and the actors, that is something that is extremely, extremely powerful and communal. So yeah, it's very, very much rewarding to get a chance to be on stage. Plus you play everything in real time, whereas in television and film, you shoot things way out of order. But on stage, you can always tell how you're doing. Yeah, and that's quite different from film and television, for sure. Yes?
If you have a script for a movie that's about, and you want a certain actor to be in it, how do you get the script to that actor?
Well, are you a writer? Yeah, good. Yeah, great. Well, typically what you would try to do is look for that actor's representation. You can find out who represents the agent or manager of that person and then try to submit through the agent or manager. That's the best way to do that. It can be a very difficult process because there's a lot of people that are attempting to get in touch in that way. But it does work that way sometimes. Yeah. Yes?
I always admired actors' abilities to remember their lines. How do you do it?
Thanks. That's a great question. Well,
You forgot.
No, next time that happens, just someone whisper, did you forget your lines? Just whisper that.
Well, I like to talk about, if I were to ask any of us, if someone else were to come up here, we do this as an acting exercise quite often, and I'll say something like, tell me what you did yesterday. So imagine, if you would, just in your brain real quickly, if I said to you, so what did you do yesterday? And you're about to respond and tell me the truth of what you did yesterday. So putting yourself in that position. Now, I'm going to suggest that an awful lot of you right now have gone to the movie in your head of yesterday. Does that make sense? We've gone to the movie. The actual experience is actually a series of images. It's a series, the experience itself is actually a collection of pictures. And so as an actor, when we're trying to remember our lines, what I like to recommend is what we call shoot the video. Shoot the video of the experience. Now, for instance, if your lines are what you did yesterday, you don't have to remember lines because all you have to do is remember the experience. And you go to the visuals, and that's where the lines come from. It's from the experience of having been. Wherever you were yesterday, you're about to tell me the truth. Now, if I say yesterday you were in, World War II, so we'd have to change, we'd have to shoot a different video for yesterday. But the process is kind of the same. How we tell the truth is in the experience of having been there. And when we're actors, we weren't really there, but we can create the experience through the process of shooting the video. And then we have a first-person memory on behalf of the character that we can use, and that will help us with our lines. Make sense?
Yeah.
What would be your dream role if you could play anyone or any sort of...
Well, I enjoyed Breaking Bad quite a bit. That would have been a good role. I missed out on that one somehow. There are... Well, I'll tell you one. I intend to play George in Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. This might be a little bit obscure for some of you guys, but I like to play that role at some point. Also like to play Officer Lockstock in the play Urinetown. So there's a few roles. A lot of my dream roles I'm too old for now. I'm not going to play Hamlet. I'm sure they're not going to let me play Romeo. I've never done that. I don't think I'll get a chance to do those. So yeah, I'd like to play Lear. I've gotten a chance to do a lot of them. Sweeney Todd was a big dream role for me, and I've had a chance to do that a couple times. Yeah, thanks for asking. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I find acting to be a fascinating profession, and one of the things that intrigues me is I get the impression that in order to be effective, you have to understand yourself. You have to first understand yourself, and then you can tap emotions and so forth that makes you more effective in a role. So if you could speak to that.
Yeah, one of the techniques that I like to try to use is what we call the universal idea. So if I'm going to play a role and maybe I'm charged with feeling love for another character, or whatever the emotional value is, but we'll just use love in this case. And what I like to try to do is tap into the universal idea of love, not only my own personal experience, so I can find it where it lives in my being, but also to understand the universal idea of love, or whatever the emotional values is, whether they're good or negative emotional values. There's still a universal idea that gives me a chance to go and play the human idea of love, not only my own idea of love. So I do indeed, we try to use our own experience, but also to open up to the universal experience of whatever those things are, whether it's jealousy or piousness or love or whatever those things are. The universal idea is available for us, so that we don't have to only be limited to our own experience of these emotional ideas, but we can go ahead and use the universal idea. That's a good question. Thanks. Yes?
I've talked to ministers and actors, and they all seem to say that at basis they're introverts. And they have chosen to be a minister, who is like an actor, or an actor, because they can immerse themselves in somebody not themselves.
Yes.
How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I'm kind of an introvert as well. I think in a lot of my is that surprising, Anne? I don't know. Is it? Yeah. You only see me in class where I have to be an extrovert. Yeah, a little bit. I think that is definitely something that is really true. We get to be something else when we act. We get to present a different point of view. We get to be from a different century or from a different point of view entirely. And that is a great opportunity. And you were telling me this morning about your granddaughter, who's so very shy, and yet she gets on stage and she's the star of the show. So, yeah, I think, and that is definitely something that is really, really true. We get a chance to get out and really express ourselves when we act, and we aren't responsible. We don't have to make sense of it, and we don't have to justify it, because we get a chance to be somebody else. It's a beautiful experience. Anybody else have any thoughts for me? Yes?
I have two more questions.
Okay.
One is, will you be acting anywhere in Phoenix? And two, where did this expression come from? Go out there and break a leg. How is that?
That's a really great question, and there's a lot of debate on where a break a leg comes from. Most people attribute it to John Wilkes Booth, actually, who, when he shot President Lincoln, he jumped out of Lincoln's box and landed on the stage and broke his leg. And so people have often said that break a leg comes from that. I don't know, though, personally, but that's what people often say. And will I be acting anywhere soon? I'm on TV during the day. You can see me in reruns. I don't have any acting jobs here in Phoenix. I've been a member of all the unions and stuff, and there's not much union work here. I'm also very busy at my acting studio downtown, which keeps me pretty busy. And I go to France next month too, so I won't be acting in anything here in town anytime soon. But again, I'm in reruns. I'm in syndication. So yes.
Do you have any favorite contemporary playwrights or screenwriters, and what is it about their work that is
Oh, that's a great question. There's a great writer named Susan Laurie Parks, who who has written about the Black American experience in kind of very raw terms. She's an amazing writer. Maria Irene Fornes has written about the Latin experience in political terms and in terms of women's place in society. They're very empowering, very rich, powerful writers. Paula Vogel is another friend of mine. She's a friend, but also a great writer. Sarah Rule is another one. A lot of great women playwrights right now, which is great. Yeah, so those are some of my favorite contemporary writers at the moment. Neil Butte is another, but he's kind of dark. It's kind of a jaded idea about human beings. But there's a great tradition of that. Edward Albee was the same kind of a writer who would write about kind of the dark side of human beings. So those are some of my favorite writers. Yeah, thanks for asking. Yeah.
How would, if you wanted to submit a resume for an acting job, you haven't done anything since high school 20 years ago. Like, what would you put in your resume?
Yeah, well, I have always found that people that did acting 20 years ago in high school, it's in their blood. It's in their bones. And if you came back to it, it would probably pretty quickly come back to you, and you'd be just as good as you were back then. Probably you spent all those years now knowing that you can do that. And I really think that percolates inside of us, and I find this a lot of actors that come back later on, that, after they've retired or whatever, they come in and now they're ready to get started on working seriously. And those people that have that kind of background from years ago, they pick right up, and they're kind of ready to compete in a very short period of time sometimes. So I would recommend, some classes and those types of things to get your chops up, get your confidence going, and then you'd be ready to get out there and compete. There's a lot of independent film work that happens here in Phoenix. There's quite a bit of that kind of work going on, and there's also a lot of theater here as well. Yeah. Good. Yes.
I noticed you were a singer at one point. Would it be presumptuous to ask you to sing something, or is it? Are you?
Oh, I'd love to. Sure.
On that same note, can you do an impression of Eric Clapton?
Do I look like Eric Clapton?
You're dead nuts.
Is that right?
You're dead right.
I haven't heard that before. The hair is new, so I don't know. I'd love to sing something. Thanks for asking. Bird flying high, you know how I feel. Sun in the sky, you know how I feel. Breeze drifting by, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me. Feeling good. Dragonfly out in the sun, you know how I feel. Butterflies all having fun, you know how I feel. Sleep in peace when day is done. That's how I feel. And this old world, it's a new world and a bold world for me. And I'm feeling good. Thanks. Thank you so much. I've had a really great time. Just my one little summarization line here is through understanding of the actor, through the actor's understanding of others, that we come to know that we're really not different at all. Thank you very much for allowing me to be here this morning. I really appreciate it.
Please stand now as you are willing and able and join in the singing of today's closing hymn, number 6, Just As Long As I Have Breath.
As long as I
now let us read together the in unison, the West Valley Mission Statement as printed in your order of service. We agree to provide a safe place to celebrate diversity, draw inspiration for living better lives, foster social and environmental justice, and compassionately support each other in our spiritual searches. We have come together this morning to remind one another to rest for a moment on the forming edges of our lives, to resist the headlong tumble into the next moment, until we claim for ourselves awareness and gratitude, taking the time to look into one another's faces and see their communion, the reflection of our own eyes. This house of laughter and silence, memory and hope, has been hallowed by our presence together. Little added pleasure if you want to stick around for a minute. Sam's going to play a little number for us.